Welcome to ESI Africa. Today I'm in conversation with the MEC of Finance from the Free State Provincial Treasury, Mrs. Gadija Brown. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you so much. And I am so happy to be here, MediaC. It's been a wonderful morning, and I'm seeing people from across the world, foreign investors, people who are interested in our energy space, and it's quite dynamic and incredible. The world is moving while certain people are standing still. So we've got to move when they move.
That's true. In this space, we can't be stagnant. So let me just jump straight into it. You've been in the local government space for a while. What is the true state of our municipalities in South Africa?
To be very, very honest, I think that we would find that 60% of our municipalities in South Africa between the first or the next 5 years will have some financial difficulty, largely because we need to ensure that the capability and the capacity within municipalities are understanding what it means to leverage assets and ensure growth. When we're talking about growth, we're talking not only about revenue growth, but investment, so that when we invest into any productive asset within our municipalities, it generates sufficient amount of revenue for that municipality to become a lot more sustainable. So outside of just reducing expenses and ensuring that we borrow as an example, we have to raise the revenue and the growth lever in order to keep our municipalities sustainable. But management, ensuring that we deal with the governance part of municipalities, ensuring that councils, so when we have cohesion councils, we're finding that it's a lot more difficult to make decisions within those councils, and pertinent and very important council decisions extend for 6 to 12 months, for example, like an investment of a solar plant or an investment towards a developmental infrastructure or aspect of that municipality, because councils cannot come to a conclusion. So we've got to find mechanisms to understand that all the spheres of a local government, from the political oversight level into the administrative level and into the implementation line, they have to work in synergy, and that administrative political interplay. There needs to be some guide and barrier towards development and growth within local government and government as a whole.
Good lay of land. I really enjoyed that. But let me circle back. You mentioned that we need to also ensure that municipalities continue to generate revenue. Where is it going to come from?
So right now, outside of the services that we look at, energy, which is electricity, we're also looking at water, we're also looking at basic services, rates and taxes, and so on and so forth. Land is an example of revenue. Ensuring that the local economic development unit works, where permits for informal businesses are issued with a certain amount of annual fees, ensuring that there is that carbon tax and carbon credits, the rebates, the facilitation of ensuring that your financial services are linked directly towards understanding the financial overview or a balance sheet of a municipality, and being able to deliver trading services and support trading services to deliver the revenue that we need to generate. Investment is critical.
Yes.
A municipality. So when we talk about foreign investment, and when we have this beautiful investment summit that the president has and provincial governments has, that investment lies within an address which belongs to a ward, which belongs to a local government. And that determines the growth, job creation, and the movement of funds, goods, and services that ignites and stimulates our GDP. That is what should be at the forefront of understanding what investment is. But we've got to incentivize, we've got to be able to provide a conducive environment for that investment to function, where labor is not only there to determine wage prices, but also we can look at innovative mechanisms to projects where you have a preferential workers' trust, where workers have got access to having someone being
Yeah.
on the board, making that decision, and instead of fighting projects and instead of being part of ensuring that these projects aren't going to be taken further because of interests. So we've got to deal with investments a little bit differently. We've also got to have efficient and technical individuals who have the expertise to deal with such uh, transactions in local government and in provincial authorities as well.
Are these initiatives really translating to service delivery, MEC?
In certain areas, yes, and in others, no. So what I found being on the ground is that a councillor starts there where if a pipe bursts, councillor has direct access to the authority to deal with that burst pipe. When it is raised at a council level, council shouldn't sit back and wait 2 to 3 or 4 days to ensure that that matter has been resolved. And unfortunately, in certain local governments, that is what is happening. Others, you have very passionate public servants and councillors who are really there to serve the people. I've seen incredible councillors across our province and the country as well. So we've got to find the balance. We've got to find the right teams on the ground. It starts there to be able to get this right. And then, of course, I think there has got to be a lot of more discipline in the governance side because, for example, certain areas we are still using grants to pay salaries, and that then hinders the time, and of course, it erodes the budget when you're paying salaries whilst you're dealing with a grant that has to deal with an infrastructure project. So time and value of that project changes significantly. You may see that the scope of the project has increased because you're utilizing funding for something that should not be utilized for. And then so I mentioned earlier in the session, you're taking from Peter to pay Paul. And when Peter's looking for it, Paul doesn't know where it is. So we've got to find funds for Peter all over again. And that's where we should, and what we're planning to do at a national treasury level. We've had a discussion with the minister and all MECs as a handover a document to the next administration, is that we've got to have systems that are centralized in managing how we deal with our grants so that there is an ability to force us to have portfolio of evidence of how those grants are spent.
You know what? I do know that you work very hard, especially for your community, and I've known you for a while now. So we're quite impressed with some of your work. Is there any particular project that you can look and reflect back and say, you know, I'm really proud of what I have done here for the province?
Oh, yes. Oh, there's so many. I mean, in my career in government, which has been short but long. So I've been in the private sector for about 15 years. And then in government for 9, it will be 10 years in August this year. But I think some of the most significant projects that we've done was enabling informal businesses to come into the formal space, to have access to do work with municipalities and provincial governments. Not only in my previous life as an administrator in government, when I was the head of department for economic development, but I continued with it in treasury as a political head, as the MEC. We do something called a CSD program where we go into the most rural environments and we speak to young people, women, older individuals who are interested in working with government, catering as an example, or just normal supply of toilet papers, waters, and so on, as a start, of course. And we teach them how to submit documentation in the most compliant way when there is a call for quotations for such supplies. So we've been able to empower and transform our procurement or our preferential procurement database and portal to a large extent during my time. And it came with a lot of teething pains because individuals require access to financing because you have to fund the purchase of that stock before you can deliver it and then get paid. And then there's something called accruals, where payments are not made within 30 days. So to fix the business, to fix their borrowings from the bank or friend, or these cash loans, which are extremely expensive. And of course, they don't make the desired profits. So when we really want to talk about making meaningful and effective change, we have to build an incubator, an ecosystem that allows for all of these elements that are significantly contributed to the progress of those coming into the economy or the mainstream economy, and of course the work that we want to see that our communities are doing for government and with government. So I think those are one of it. But building a policy, building a Free State growth and development strategy. When I arrived as an MEC, we were on an overdraft of 1.5 billion a month, and we were paying interest expense to the banks and the Reserve Bank because we were borrowing from the main bank and the Reserve Bank. And when I arrived in the first equitable share, I said, what is your need and what is your desires, MEC? Whatever it is that you do not need, if it's a desire, we are going to park that. Let us fund the needs. And when we did that, we found that we could invest, and we've been investing on average 500 to 700 to 1.3 billion month on month. And I've been able to build reserves over these 5 years to 200 to 250 million rand that goes back into our service delivery pot and back into some of the work that we are doing. Of course, 5 clean audits after there had been no clean audits in the Free State. We've reduced our irregular expenditure. There's still a lot of work to do in local government space. But I think there has been some significant improvements, but there is still a lot of changes and a lot of the wrongs that we still have to right. And that is still going to take time. But with the political will and the leadership of our Premier, Mr. Mkolisi Dukwana, and of course the executive, I think we would get to that point.
Well, those are good statistics. I mean, it's a lot of effort that you have put, and I've mentioned this to you, and it's good to see that slowly but surely we are starting to get results now. So in a nutshell, you were talking in one of the sessions about recommendations that you would make for municipalities to perform better in a very crystallized way. What would be your top 3 recommendations for municipalities to improve their performance?
I think largely we should start with management. Everything starts there. Management across the vertical and horizontal. Understanding financial management, understanding people management, and understanding oversight, management, and accountability, which includes monitoring and evaluation, or we could call them outcomes-based performance management, so that you're not only managing compliance, but you're managing the outcome of what you're wanting to achieve. So I think if we categorize the one portion, it is that. So earlier I spoke about political administrative interplay. There must be some recourse if somebody made a financial mistake or negligence. There must be, some sort of recourse or accountability if you don't have remittances attached to an expenditure line item. There must be some accountability if a project is failing on the ground and it's incomplete and you're not understanding why you haven't planned and budgeted and executed this project in time at the value that was outlined. So there's got to be that. So first and foremost, I think it starts there across the board management. Just to give you a short example.
Yes.
We had 800 senior and middle managers in a room with the premier and some of the leaders, and we asked them pertinent questions. Do you think government's working? No. Do you think you're being innovative? No. Do you think you do? No. And when last did you have a one-on-one with your supervisor? None of them could give us an answer. And I said, but this is an indictment, not on the leadership on the stage, because we provide strategy. We are board members. We are strategists. We do oversight. The implementation and the management lies with you, HODs, senior managers, middle managers, and junior managers. You've got to get your teams to do the work. So it starts there. The second matter that I would like to talk is being closer to the people. The people are not going to reject they are our shareholders. We as public servants work for our communities. So it will not be rejected. We won't find ourselves having various bogged down legal litigations and so on. If the people bought into a project and understood, if there is a process of community engagements, appeals are not going to happen. Constitutional court decisions are not going to have to come in to intervene on what a community and government needs to do. So there has to be that open participation. What does this community want? And give the community what it needs, not something that you believe or think that it needs. And then lastly, I do believe that outside of governance, there also is something that I would call humanity and making decisions, governing or making legislative decisions or policy decisions that will reside for the greater good over a very, very long term. So ethically, how does it sit with you? Ethically, how does this impact not only your children or your grandchildren, but an entire community around you? So you cannot put a gas cylinder in the middle of a functioning, happy, joyful community that has got a park and some community area things, just simple things like that. I'm using such silly hypothetical examples, but unfortunately, I've seen projects on the ground that does not serve the community very well, and it's investment not well spent. So I think we could do that a lot better.
If I can summarize that, because I think this is the crux of the matter, it's outcome-based management and policies. It's really engaging with communities, staying close to them. It's also about accountability and really serving the communities well, the greater good. I think that's the word you used. I think if we all do that and pull our heads together, put shoulder to wheel, we will succeed. But as I mentioned, thank you very much for all the hard work that you do. And it was a pleasure to talk to you right now.
It was
on
great.
ESI.
And Mediacy, thank you for the invitation. I was deeply honored, and I am so incredibly impressed with the ability to see what the world has just brought to the CTICC. This team has been able to do it, and congratulations on a very well organized Inlet Africa.
Thank you very much. So if you enjoyed this video, please share it and reshare and reshare. This is ESI Africa Insights.